Hello, my name is Frederica Wilson, and today I'll be talking with you all about Chapter 11, the Assessment for Integrated Classrooms, and the strategy we'll be using is multiple intelligence. So I'll begin by focusing on what is assessment. Assessment is normally the process of documenting or maybe a tool or method of obtaining information from tests or other sources about the achievement abilities of an individual. Assessment is really important for English language learners because it determines their educational placement, their need for whatever type of support services they will receive, their grade retention, their curriculum, and their expectations for success. And in Chapter 11, the author focuses on teachers and practitioners who instruct English language learners in content and language learning. So it could be teachers who do pull-outs, push-ins, or anything like that. So the first one is standardized tests. They're normally developed by states and national companies for many content areas. Standardized tests have to be valid and reliable. And the classroom-based assessment is the gathering of information on an ongoing basis over a period of time. So that could include teacher observations, writing projects, teacher-made tests or quizzes, presentations or surveys. Anything that a teacher uses to monitor student achievement so they can plan and improve their instruction and provide feedback to the students and their parents. In the program evaluation, it seeks information about the schools and the teachers and monitor the effectiveness of their program. So maybe like, did the student understand the question to answer it? Did the student answer the question that was asked? So the program is just evaluating the program that's implemented in that particular school.
Sorry, guys.
Here are a few things that teachers should keep in mind when they're assessing their students. The assessment should provide fair, reliable, and valid information. The assessment should also inform the teacher of, are my objectives fair, or are my objectives, am I teaching my objectives correctly? And it should be a way that they can improve their teaching and also improve the way that their students learn. Assessments also should be used by multiple sources of information, and whenever you assess, it should be assessed using familiar instructional techniques. So you wouldn't necessarily want to give an English language learner an essay assessment if they're not really strong in writing. Two different types of assessments that are normally given to students are summative assessment and formative assessment. Summative assessment is the evaluation at the end of learning to determine whether learners have achieved goals. So, for example, standardized testing, you have up until a certain point to learn all the material, and then at the end of the school year, you're assessed on what you've learned. And formative assessment is the evaluation during learning. Teachers can gather information about their students' learning and evaluate their own teaching. So an example would be a quiz. So in the morning or, after lunch, you can assess the students on what they learned in the morning. Authentic assessments are assessments that are different than your traditional paper pen test. So teachers have now been leaning towards more authentic assessments lately. So a few of them are listed here. You can maybe have the students do illustrations, projects, poster boards, dioramas, lab reports, portfolios, graphic organizers, bio poems, journals, reading logs, role plays, oral presentations, interviews, debates, group discussions, demonstrations, and self-assessments. And this is a way to just assess students or offer them an alternative assessment rather than the paper pencil test. it's important to have English language learners participate in the self-assessment. Self-assessment that routinely accompanies instruction helps the learners to process their own skill development, take responsibility for their own learning, and it guides them into good study skills. So you may want to have a student evaluate their reading behaviors, like on their self-assessment. It could be anything from have I read every day? Have I listened to my teacher read? Do I like to read, or I read at home? Do I borrow books from the library? And they could just simply circle something that says not often, sometimes, or usually. And it just guides them into making sure that they're studying and they're taking responsibility and they're developing the skill to be able to improve. So we want to make sure that when we're assessing students, that all of our assessments are culturally sensitive to diverse students, their language, and their cultures. So here's a list of multiple intelligence strategies that may work for you because students learn better different ways. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is kinesthetic. And these are students that have the ability to move through space effectively and learns best with movement. The next one I'm going to talk about is intrapersonal. These people are so smart. They understand their own ways of thinking and learning, and they would prefer to work alone. Interpersonal are people smart, so they would like to work better in groups and they interact effectively with others. Visual spatial learners, they're picture smart. They like to learn through visuals, and they have the ability to express themselves through art and beauty. Linguistic learners are word smart. So this person can manipulate words and language easily through words. Logical mathematics, they're number smart. They manipulate numbers and understand logic concepts. Musical, they like music. They learn this through rhythm and patterns. And naturalistic learners learn best through nature. So they have just a strong affinity for animals, the earth, and the environment. Rubrics. Rubrics are very important because they list the specific criteria used to evaluate a product or presentation, and then they indicate performance levels on a scoring scale that uses numbers, letters, or descriptive labels. Rubrics are very important because they lead to higher student achievement. So if you want to give rubrics prior to teaching, because they provide clear explanations and expectations for what you want your students to do. They should always reflect your learning objectives, and if possible, please give a demonstration or a great example of what you're looking for. Next, I'll be discussing our RTI, Response to Intervention model. And RTIs were originally incorporated as a form of assessing and applying interventions for young children who struggle with the basic skills of literacy. But most recently, this research and information has been able to be applied to English language learners as well. So the RTI assessment process has two major functions. And the first one is a screening process, and then the next one is progress monitoring. So for screening, it's typically accomplished by administering a brief measure, typically 2 times a year, maybe 3 times a year, the early fall and the late spring. So it's designed to predict outcomes related to a state or district reading assessment. So the outcomes are compared to a benchmark or a cutoff point, and they're used to determine a risk status for each student. So screening should be developmentally appropriate, valid, and reliable, and it's usually done by the ESOL coordinator. And the progress monitoring occurs at all tiers of the RTI model, and it provides detailed information about current student performance and growth. So and also use the curriculum-based measurement in elementary schools. So once the students are screened, then they are able to be in the RTI tiers, and then we have to progress monitor to make sure that it's effective. So I just showed you this tier, and normally sometimes we have 3 tiers, but I'm showing you just this one as an example. So a sample RTI. So tier 1 could be it's conducting a language screening for all new students to see if a language other than English is spoken in the home. So that's done for all students sent home normally like the first week of school for every student. And then tier 2, when it comes back, then you know that you will have to make modifications to your intervention. So you can coordinate with the ESOL specialists to gather information and related cultural, linguistic factors that may affect academic achievement and see if they can, or he or she can provide you additional resources so that you're able to modify your lessons to accommodate your ESOL students. So here's a summary of helpful assessment tips. 1, identify standards and objectives, always. 2, determine a variety of assessment procedures that will adequately assess learning for all language proficiency levels in class. So what might work for one student may not work for another student. Make sure that you have a variety of assessment procedures. So next, you'll identify appropriate scaffolding for assessments. So if a student is struggling with learning a specific content area, you make sure that you are able to give that student different strategies so that they can understand. Determine a variety of activities that will reflect each objective. Communicate and demonstrate success to all learners in form of rubrics, self-assessments, models, demonstrations, and or completed projects. And then also use the RTI model for our English language learners if necessary. So I hope this presentation was definitely helpful for you all in the assessment process. And thank you for listening.